Welcome back to the Insight Teen Hour. It's Monday, 2 p.m. This is the time where we're going to talk about anything related to teen mental health up here in the Santa Clarita community. My name is Frederik. I'm from Insight Treatment Programs. And today I've got two guests in the studio. I'll introduce them in a moment. Last week we spoke to Dr. Elena Michaels, a local psychologist here from the community. She gave us a lot of great information or insight into how healthy food habits are so important for obviously for parents to be able to be in a mindset where they can actually communicate effectively with their teens. We talked about nutrition's effect on your mental health. Got a lot of good input on that. This week, I've decided to invite a parent who has had a teen who was struggling with mental health issues. The teen was going through depression, anxiety, and was struggling with adoption issues, I remember at the time. Valerie is the mom, and welcome to the studio, Valerie.
Thank you.
I've also, in the studio today, I've also invited in our senior counselor, Johnathan Guerino, who has been with Insight for many years now, and is a huge part of our counselor team. And I think Johnathan is here today. Thanks for your time, Johnathan.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Great. So the three of us are going to talk a little bit about, hey, what's going on when a teen is struggling? How is it to be a parent? What did Valerie go through back in the days when her daughter was struggling? What does it feel like to be a parent? How do you deal with all these emotions you're going through? What does it look like to look for treatment? What options is there out there? And we're also going to talk to Valerie about, hey, what is treatment about? What is expected? What are the hard parts of treatment as a parent, from a parent's perspective? So I'm very excited for the show today. It's going to be great. Valerie, why don't we start with you? Valerie,
Sure.
can you tell me a little bit about, hey, how was it back in the days when your daughter was starting her teenage years? What was sort of the first signs you saw that maybe she was struggling? Yeah, can we take you back to those days?
Sure. My daughter at that time was going into her sophomore year of high school. And that summer before her sophomore year, I noticed that something was wrong with her in the sense of emotionally, and she seemed very depressed and a bit disconnected. And I didn't really that summer do anything about it because I really didn't know what was going on, and I thought it was summer. And then in the fall, when she went back to school, and she was normally a good student, within the first month, I was getting calls from the teacher and getting calls from a counselor that she was falling asleep in class and was not doing her work and was skipping school. And I may have been naive during the summer because what I fast realized is whatever emotional problems she was feeling, it was also her getting into drugs and alcohol in a very, very serious way. And I really didn't know what to do with it. And we were fighting all the time, and it was a very dark and difficult period for both of us, but especially for me. I had no idea the amount of alcohol she was consuming on a daily basis and all the drugs she was taking. And it culminated in a weekend when she was drinking so much that she almost passed out. And then she got very violent, and I literally had to call the police. And the police came, and they suggested that they put her on a hold. And they took her to the hospital and put her on a 3-day hold. At that point, I felt like my whole entire world was collapsing. I had had no experience with this. I have an older son. I had had no experience with this in my life, either myself growing up, my sisters, my son. Nobody in our family ever had this kind of behavior. So I didn't know where to go or what to do, but the hospital said you've got to get her into some kind of a treatment program. And I started madly calling around, and my son was helping me calling. And it was a horrible, horrible weekend, because the other thing was they weren't going to release her until I had a program to put her in. And I don't exactly remember how I found Insight, but immediately when I called, somebody called me back and said, you can bring her to us. And I felt this unbelievable relief. And I knew she needed care. And I didn't know whether she needed residential care or daycare. But then I took her to Insight, and Insight said, well, let's work with her for a month, and then we'll decide whether she needs some residential. And that's basically how this all started.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was wondering, by chance, this is going to seem a little bit unorthodox, but is there any way we can go back a little bit more, like a little bit more back in time before treatment? Like how it was growing up with you, your relationship with her, before it started changing?
Sure. So I adopted Michaela at birth, and we don't look alike. And in about the 5th grade, kids started teasing her that I wasn't really her mother. She had beautiful long blonde hair. I have dark hair. And she started getting upset about it. And I had made the decision very early on, and it's a decision that I now regret, but it seemed the right decision at the time. I did not tell her she was adopted. So when this whole situation happened, it was very scary and very bad for her. I took her immediately to see a psychologist in Calabasas, and I thought we were working through the issues. She had therapy with the therapist, and sometimes we had joint therapy. And she was 9 at the time. But then things got more and more strained between us, not on my part, but on her part. And in middle school, 7th and 8th, it got worse in the sense that we were fighting all the time. And it just was a terrible, terrible cycle.
Got you. So like a lot of low self-esteem, a little bully issues going on, some anger. Was anything else was anything going on for you? Like how were you feeling when all this was transpiring?
I thought, well, this is what it's like having a teenage daughter.
Okay.
And it wasn't really, and I just sort of hung in there until I realized that she was starting to drink and do drugs.
Gotcha.
And that's when I knew it wasn't just normal teenage behavior.
Well, not to put you off guard a little bit, but as a counselor, I've always wondered, right? So I'm wondering if school wasn't affected at that time. Say, for instance, she was getting all A still. Would you think there was symptoms that you've seen before the academic part came into effect?
Um,
Like more disconnected, not talking anymore.
she
With
was more disconnected, but I don't think I would have spotted it if it hadn't been for the grades. I just thought, well, she's going through this terrible period. I didn't realize how bleak it was, how bad it was.
got you.
It took, she, from what she's told me, she had been drinking and doing drugs about 6 months before I realized there was a problem with her.
Blackout periods and everything, right?
No, she wasn't blacking out at that time, which is why I didn't notice it. Once she knew that I knew she was drinking and doing drugs, it got worse. She just thought, okay, I knew, and it got worse and worse. And we fought more and more.
Got you.